Now that we know investing is the way to leverage compound interest and build a lot of wealth for ourselves, now the question is, how do we actually do investment in Sweden? There are multiple ways and multiple accounts that you can use in Sweden to do your investments, specifically stock market investments. But there is one that's the most popular, and that is called an ISK account. So the good thing about an ISK account is that its tax is fully managed. So as long as you buy all your investments within an ISK account, you don't need to do any sort of manual tax calculation. Everything is done by the broker or the institution that gives you the account. Keep in mind, this is just an account type. So opening this account doesn't mean anything on its own. You can just open it right now. As long as you don't buy anything in it, there is no harm, there is no problem, there is nothing. So you can just open an ISK account. And then at the next step, you need to actually buy something in that ISK account. ISK accounts are the most optimal investment vehicles for almost everyone. So if you are a regular retail investor or have not yet started investing, 100%, this is going to be the path to go. This is the easiest way. This is the least amount of friction that you're going to have. So just open up an ISK account, and then we are going to talk about how do you actually buy stuff within an ISK account. So if you don't know, if you're not sure, this is the way to go. ISK account. Where do you actually open an ISK account? There are multiple brokers within Sweden that use an ISK account. So they actually have tax calculations and everything by the book, by the requirements of the government. So they take care of everything for you in terms of tax. There are a couple that are quite useful and they're quite popular between people. The bigger one is Avanza, which you might have heard of already. So Avanza basically has access to most of the markets that you would expect in different countries, different regions, different zones. And they also offer you the majority of different funds and everything else that might exist. So it's the bigger one. There is a smaller one called Nordnet as well. The good thing about Nordnet is that if you don't speak Swedish, they have a website in English and an app in English, which is a good thing. Avanza doesn't, so you usually have to use like a translation feature or something like that to use the website. But either way, you cannot go wrong. Every single bank account, the regular checking account that you currently have, like Nordea, SEB, like any other bank that you might have, almost always they also have ISK accounts as well. The difference is usually in the number of opportunities and number of different markets and stocks and funds that they offer within their ISK accounts. For the strategy that we are going to talk about, it almost does not matter when you open up your ISK accounts. We're going to talk about later on. All right, so then the question is, now I have opened up an ISK account. Now I know I'm going to start investing. What do I actually buy within this ISK account? Because you told me that this is just an account, like a regular checking account, right? With just additional options to buy stocks and funds and stuff like that, so to do the investing. What we recommend in this course for you to start, and for the majority of people, until you grow your net worth to a very high number, so until you reach a number around 10 to 15 million kroner, you don't need almost anything else. You just need an ISK account. And then, as we talked about before, you want to buy a whole market or a whole chunk of a market. And in investment terms, that's what we call a fund. So a fund is a collection of different stocks that you collect in one basket, and then you buy that whole thing. So for example, you handpick like 10 different stocks, and then you buy all of them, and that is called a fund. There are multiple different types of funds. There are mutual funds that are actively managed. So someone is sitting there and picking different stocks and putting it into a basket, and then they will sell you part of that basket. But there is this other thing called an index fund, which is exactly what we talked about. We talked about S&P 500. S&P 500 is an index fund, meaning that it's not actively managed. There is not a person behind it who picks stocks. It just looks at the broad market. So S&P 500 specifically looks at the top 500 companies in the US market. and it buys all of those proportional to their market cap, proportional to the size of the company compared to the rest of the stock market, right? And then you have other index funds as well. So there are a few examples on the screen here, as you can imagine. So global index funds, they essentially buy stock across the world. So not just in the US, also in the Europe, Japan, like Southeast Asia, China, everywhere, right? You have USA index, very similar to S&P 500. So the issue is that you cannot directly buy S&P 500 here in Sweden as a fund. There are other ways to do it. But one of the closest that exists to it is Landsförsäkringar USA index, as you can see on the screen. And there's obviously Sweden index funds as well. And then you have thematic index funds as well. So if you are interested in one particular area or one particular industry, you can buy the index of that industry as well. But generally, when you want to think about it, you want to diversify as much as possible. What does that mean? It means that you want to be very, very exposed to one area or one market. So for example, if you just buy US stocks and something crazy happens, like it is happening in 2025 right now with all the trade wars and everything that's going on, then you are very, very exposed to the risks of the US market. So in order to reduce that risk for yourself and make the long-term play, which we have been talking about the whole course right now, you want to diversify as much as you can. So the best way to start with that mindset is to go with a global index fund. So that means you are buying companies across the world, and that means you are betting on the world economy to get better years down the line. Remember, you have a long time horizon. You are not looking at the market in the next 1 year, 2 years. You're looking at it in the at least next 5 to 10 years. So you are betting that the world economy is going to be better 10 years down the line than it is today. So if unsure, this is the best place to start. And then the most important part, as we talked about, is your consistency. So you need to invest every single month and ideally automatically. Why do we say that? Because if you remember the compound interest formula that we talked about on all those graphs, the first biggest contributor was time. So the amount of time that you let your money compound. The second most important factor was your consistency of investment. So all of those graphs assumed that you are investing every single month. So that is what you need to do. You should not break that cycle. This should happen automatically every single month. So you decide on a number that makes sense for your personal finances. By the way, we are going to calculate that number towards the end of this course when we get to the Google Sheets. So once you come up with that number, then you set up an automatic transfer of your money into an ISK account, and then you would automatically buy a global index fund. So that is the way that we would recommend to do this.